Hello, everybody. My name's Wayne. I'm the CEO of the USS Southern Cross, the Melbourne chapter. We're here for another lovely, intellectually hour of just crap. Myself,
and we really want you to watch.
Yeah. Start off. We may as well start off completely off the ball. I love being
honest too. We want you to watch our crap.
I love being honest. And on my, I always get this mucked up. On my other side, one of the other sides, is my hang on that way is my learned colleague
Sean O'Keefe from Tricky Fan Fiction.
Oh. I'm truthful. He's singing. I don't know where this is going to go today. Yes, and as you can see, I'm trying something new. I'm trying blurred background. The only reason is because I noticed it when I was editing out the others, I kept disappearing in the other one. So hopefully, or some may actually think
his computer's not as cool as mine.
No, so. Mine isn't. Mine's old, and for some, me disappearing may actually be a good thing. I don't know. Okay, so what are we going to really tear apart on this? And it is going to be a tear apart on this because it's actually going to make sense in a minute. But we're doing the Next Generation episode Conspiracy. Now, I'm going to be upfront with this. I hate this episode. In the immortal words of Data, I hate this. And I do. I really do. I despise this this episode. Absolutely. But my learned colleague has a different viewpoint.
Actually, I thought it was one of the better episodes of season one. I thought it was one of the best episodes of season one. Look at that. There's a clock.
I know. We're going to try this again.
Managed to come in under an hour.
We're going to try to do this again. We're going to try and do this again. We did pretty good last time. We didn't use up the full 60 minutes, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still thinking. Okay. That's like, we're wishing for an honest politician. And you know, when a politician's lying, his lips are moving. Yes.
We've already got into the political arguments already. No, we're going away from that. Okay, look, this episode aired in May 9th, 1988. Now, for those of you who know a bit about the way Star Trek or way TV series, especially out here in Australia, because we are literally at the bottom end of the world, and there's something happens on the way.
We're walking our heads because we're that far down. Yes,
something goes weird with television shows, and we get some of our television episodes out of sequence. Now, I've never really been able to find a good enough answer why this happens, but it does. I'm kind of playing with that. This one was actually out of sequence because it's just stupid. But seeing I picked the episode, I hate the episode, and I picked it. The only reason I wanted it because I wanted to tear it to pieces. I'm going to leave Sean start off because he's actually got a complete other opposite end of my argument. He loves the episode.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but out of season one, it was definitely one of the better episodes. It was technically it technically was the second of a two-parter. It was the sequel to Coming of Age. Coming of Age wasn't exactly a flash episode, but it was the follow-on to the story that began in the episode Coming of Age, where we were introduced to the Admiral Quinn and the truly annoying commander. Oh, grief! Don't you hate it when you go blank?
Commander
Remick. Commander Remick, who you take one look at him and you think, "Where's the nearest airlock?"
No, I wouldn't have been wasted time with that. I would have just just phased him.
Yeah, well, we've got to remember Commander Remick. Anyhow, Commander Remick, of course, is one of the focal points for the entire story. But of course, they come on board. But it's clear to me that whoever wrote this entire story arc, seriously, they weren't reading from the same pages. because the Commander Remick who came on board the Enterprise in Coming of Age clearly wasn't the Commander Remick in the episode Conspiracy. Because, of course, the Admiral comes on board the Enterprise the first time round, and he's got serious concerns about a conspiracy, that there's something wrong in Starfleet and the Federation, and he's concerned about that, and he voices his concerns, but Remick's right there with him. Now, we discover in Conspiracy that there absolutely is a conspiracy, and that conspiracy is real. But we find out by the end of the episode, of course, that Remick is the focal point of that conspiracy. And yet, how could that be when we go back to Coming of Age and Remick is on board and he's a JAG officer who's actually doing his job and doing his job well, and he's far away from Starfleet Command, and he voices his interest in becoming a part of the Enterprise crew. The two do not gel. So it's quite clear to me that whoever wrote Conspiracy, didn't do his homework. But on its own, I think Conspiracy was a really interesting idea. You've got this alien, you've got this. I just think it wasn't developed well enough. I think Conspiracy should have been developed into multiple episodes. It could have been.
No, I had enough trouble doing one. I couldn't have done multiples of them.
When you're going to do a conspiracy, these things really can be built up well and built up over time. In this case, we were simply given 2 episodes. Not even given a hint of a conspiracy in one episode, and then it's dumped in our laps in the second episode.
I wouldn't even call them 2 episodes, in all honesty, because that first episode, you could have been talking about something completely different, which is where I'm thinking they were going. I don't think they were going with what they ended up with Conspiracy. I think that first episode where they dropped the bombshell that there was a conspiracy, I think they were potentially going in a different direction, a completely different direction. And when they came to do Conspiracy, they used the name of the supposed bombshell, and then I don't know what they did with it after that, because and I know I say this a lot.
Yeah,
I say this, that it's poorly written and it's bad script writing, but this was poorly written and very bad script writing.
I don't know. There were shortcomings in the episode. I
don't think it was even an episode. It was just a bunch of short little bits that they tried to glue together. It wasn't cohesive, and it wasn't chronological, and it didn't make any sense. It was little bits all put together. It's like they did it all in separate points and then tried to sticky tape them together with very bad sticky tape.
Mind you, they gave us an excellent director for it. Cliff Bowl is an excellent director. I mean, this is the man who gave us the best of both worlds.
Yeah, but you can only direct what's good, or what you've been given. And if you've been given crap, you can't direct much better than crap.
I know you're being asked to give a 4-course meal when you're only being given an egg and flour.
Yeah.
But mind you, we have an excellent cast. I mean, I love Henry Darrow, Admiral Savar. He's one of my favorite actors from the period. I loved Henry Darrow in the old Zorro series, Zorro shows. He was great. He was one of my favorite actors from the periods. You had some great actors on board for this, and I was delighted with the cast, and as I said, I liked the idea of this species coming on board. I don't think they really needed to go so over the top with the. I remember at the time, one of the chief complaints at the end was, of course, the killing of Commander Remick when we saw his head being blown apart. I remember one headline was Star Gore as we see his head being blown apart, and yeah, in some places it was given an M rating.
Some I
the
heard
episode was shifted in time slot just because you couldn't put it in a PG time slot.
I actually heard, now I've never found one of these, but I'd actually heard in some countries that this was actually televised in, they actually shifted that scene. They actually either removed
you probably would have had to cut the scene, or at least cut out those seconds where you blew his head off.
Yeah, they altered that scene. That they actually told Paramount, CBS, that they needed that scene changed or it wouldn't be allowed. Some even didn't show it. And in all honesty, they were probably the lucky countries that didn't get to see it. Truthfully, because it really didn't. I always felt. Now we've talked about fillers, filler episodes. I don't even think this was a filler. I don't know what this was doing. I truthfully don't.
I always wondered why they never had a sequel. I mean, they broadcast out.
Oh yeah, no,
because you just don't think it was worthwhile having a sequel.
Well, no, let's take my absolute and utter hatred, which if anyone has just come on and they haven't realised, I hate this episode, but we'll try and leave that to the side for the moment. Let's remove that part. They had set themselves up for a sequel or sequels, right?
Yes,
they could. This goes back to what you're saying, that instead of trying to jam it all into one, let's put it over a couple. Right? Let's just say that they had set themselves up for a sequel, so people had sat through, watched, thought, oh yeah, fair enough. It's a weird episode. Let's just call it a weird episode. It's a different episode. Sorry, we'll call it a different one. And then basically they've let it up and said, well, where something else is going on, and then never to hear of it again. That, I think that's also the gore in it for me was part of the problem. But the factor of never actually doing a sequel, I think, made the episode bad for me too. Because I kind of hung out waiting to see a sequel to this episode. And that episode never came. Yes. So over time, that factor grew into, me disliking it. I'm going to try and calm myself down a little bit here. I'm going to try and take a little bit of pressure off the old kettle. But I think that factor also accumulated to the point where I started to dislike it, because they literally left you hanging.
Well, perhaps, as you pointed out, there was such a level of dislike for the episode that they just decided, look, it's just not worth revisiting. If the fans truly disliked the aliens and the storyline, mind you, there were a lot of problems with it. I mean, the entire idea of the bluegill sticking out of the back of the neck is it stands out like the proverbial.
Yeah,
if you've got a hairline that comes up too short, then it's a clear indicator that this guy's got a problem.
Well, I didn't get the gill anyway, because he's taken over all functions of the individual. He's inside. Why would he need to protrude out to get oxygen? I don't fully. I struggled with that concept. That was one of the. And you're right. You're trying to do clandestine takeover, and yet you got a gill sticking out of a being where you shouldn't have a sticky point thing coming out of the back of the neck.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's there purely as a MacGuffin to let people know that, okay, yes, this is a clear indicator that this guy's been taken over. Mind you, did this ring a bell? Does this sound familiar to you at all? Does this remind you of, Goulds from Stargate at all? People being taken over by parasites that invade your body and take over all your functionality and make you stronger than you are. That also doesn't ring a bell at all, does it?
That's
one of the reasons why they never revisited it at all. It sounds a little too much like Stargate.
Well, it sounds a lot like Aliens. It sounds a lot like a few of the. It even sounds very. You can stretch it out a little bit and go to the movie The Thing. It can even go to the concept of The Thing. But
Yeah.
one of the big things I had was oh, what was his name? Hang on, I've got these written
The
down somewhere.
dude, the
Hang
guy
on.
with the place in the thing.
No, not the one of the admiral who tried to take over. Admiral Quinn. Admiral Quinn who
Yes.
tried to get Riker. He's an individual who's been taken over with superhuman strength, which I don't fully get because all they were doing, all these, from what I could understand, when you saw Beverly do the the scan, it was supposedly down at the cerebral cortex, like at the base of the neck. It was taking over from there. So I'm not 100% certain how that gave the individual superhuman strength, unless I don't know.
She said that tendrils had
Okay, I missed
reached
that bit.
into the
I must
adrenal
have,
glands.
I must have phased
And
out at
yeah,
that point.
so yeah, mind you, yeah, you can tap into a person's adrenal glands and give a person a serious adrenaline boost, but you can only do that for so long before somebody has a heart attack.
But
Um,
if you remember the fight scene with Worf and Admiral Quinn, right? Now Worf
yes,
is not. He's a Klingon, so he's got enormous power, right? He's hit Quinn multiple times in the face. There's no cuts, there's no blood nose, there's nothing. I'm sorry, you
yeah,
can increase a person's strength. I can accept that,
yes,
but you can't stop the physical component of an injury. And Quinn should have had a blood nose.
that's right.
He should have had
Quinn
a
should have
blood.
been cactus.
He should have, and there
Yeah,
was
Quinn should have been
nothing.
cactus. I would agree with you. I mean, you can only do so much with a human being's biology by boosting certain hormonal outputs, but in the end, you're still a human being.
Yeah, and then we go to the next little problem. Here we got a Worf literally laying into Quinn. Nothing's happening. Beverly opens the door and hits him with a phaser, and he drops. And now, hang on, he's not moved, nervous like his nerves being punched, but a phaser will drop you. And a phaser works on hitting the nervous system. So how was not Worf injuring him, but a phaser can work on exactly the same principle?
Well, she hit him
Work.
3 times, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, Worf wouldn't, I mean, if Worf had hit with that kind of power to Riker or Picard, that would have been funny. I'm sorry, that's bad. Picard and Riker would have got sent across the room.
Yeah.
So it's just, there was inconsistencies with they made these creatures almost indestructible, yet they could be stopped with a simple phaser.
Mind you, this was only a cursory exam. I mean, perhaps the creatures were doing a lot more than just doing a release of adrenaline into their bodies. Perhaps they were releasing other endorphins into their bodies. At that point, Beverly had only just begun her studies.
Yeah, all right.
We know that they'd released adrenaline into their bodies, but perhaps that was only just the tip of the iceberg. You know,
Look, all right.
she'd hardly had time to do an exhaustive study.
I can stand corrected on that. I'll yield the floor a little bit on that. I'm not willing to give up the floor, but I'll yield the floor a little bit. That maybe you were right. Maybe there was more going on that we didn't know about yet that was impacting. All right, I can accept that. But I really can't accept how. Now, correct me. Correct me on this point.
Yeah, go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
No, you go first because mine could end up being a long one.
I was just thinking there were a couple of things that I thought the episode fell short on. Now, admittedly, it's season 1, and I gather they had budgetary constraints, but there were a number of missed opportunities. For instance, you've got The Enterprise goes to Ditalix B and meet. There are 3 other ships in orbit. The Enterprise goes to Earth. Now, on each occasion, the only ship we see in the entire time is the Enterprise. Not there's at no other time do we see a single other vessel. I mean, especially at Earth, for goodness sake. The Earth should be a bustling metropolis of vessels,
and there's no starbase either.
They've got plenty of access to other models. Surely they can put at least a couple of other ships in the shot.
There wasn't even a space dock there. Now that doesn't. Throughout all of Star Trek, there's always been a space dock between the moon and Earth, or at least further out. But there's always been a space dock. There wasn't even a space dock.
Put the space dock in the shot.
And I love this. Now you actually got multiple things, but you actually brought one up here. When the Enterprise is going over the moon, and you can see the moon below it, and you can see it. Where's the colony on the moon?
Yeah, there was nothing on the moon, was there? Yeah, Lake Armstrong, we didn't see that. We didn't see anything.
Where was the colony? The colony's meant to have 35 million people or something, or 3 million people or something living on it.
The moon did look fairly barren, didn't it?
Yeah, where's the colony?
Oops.
Fair
point, mate. Fair point.
Oh, that one, and you just gave that one to me, so I thank you for that. But no, I mean, in all honesty, I'm not trying to. But where is? I know.
Yes. Welcome to the Nitpicker's Guide to Star Trek.
Well, I mean, if let's say you got 3 million people on the moon. Now we all know roughly how big the moon is. I'm sorry, but 3 million people on that planet with all the amenities and everything else would stretch out a fair distance.
We should have seen at least some lights.
Yes, that I would have accepted. I could have accepted. You may not have seen the actual structure, but you should have. The surface of the moon should have been illuminated.
Yes, yeah, we should have seen some lights, at the very least, a disco or or some mining or something, some indication of human and/or alien habitation.
Yeah,
but there was a giant there, nothing, nil stocks, nada.
No.
So yes, no, that was a fair point. They passed moon, and all we got was Independence Day.
Actually, yeah, I never actually noticed. I wondered why that seems so familiar when I looked at it. You're right. I didn't put the 2 and 2 together, but it was the peaceful version of Independence Day.
Yeah.
But all right, number two here. We've got they've done it as a clandestine subspace communication. So subspace order or communication 47. All right.
Yeah, code 47, which I
code
used
40.
in my books.
So they don't want.
Yeah, there was the first use of code 47, if I remember right.
And I think it was the last use of code 47 too. I think. Yeah. I don't ever remember hearing it. Look, if anyone does remember hearing code 47, please in the comments.
Yes,
because I don't ever actually remember hearing code 47 ever again. But we've got Walker wanting to do a clandestine meeting, secret, whatever, and they don't want anyone to know what's going on. Walker won't tell Picard over subspace what's going on because he doesn't trust subspace, but he tells him where to meet.
Yes. Ditalix B.
You don't want to, because you don't...
which is fair enough.
Yeah, but you don't trust subspace, and then you tell everybody, if Starfleet is watching...
If Ditalix B is close by, then you can be reasonably certain that at least you've got a small frame of time frame to be able to pull off a meeting.
Yeah, but you got 4 ships, 4 of the well-known ships. You've got the flagship. They're all coming off their patrol duties, and that's not gonna set off a couple of alarm bells. 4 ships just disappear for a couple of hours. That to me, they could have done that better. They could have done it like Walker supposedly was, and Picard were so great mates. They knew what each other was thinking. It could have
don't
done
worry,
it in a
don't worry.
code.
It rang alarm bells for me as well. Perhaps the better idea would have been for them to, rather than divert all those ships, was for the captains to simply grab their a shuttle each and meet there.
Or their captain's yacht. I mean, we know
Yeah,
it's there. We don't ever get to see it, but we
Yeah,
know it's
well,
there.
The captain's yacht isn't outfitted with warp drive, so they would have been better off with shuttles. But,
I can accept, but that was
Yeah.
that to me didn't make a lot of sense. And again,
Yeah.
that was
yeah,
probably
you don't divert the ship. You just take the shuttle.
that kind of also set off alarm bells for me for the episode where that simplest fact was just ignored.
Yeah,
the
I
other-
know it's not exactly subtle.
No, it's not. I mean, you could, and I would agree with you that by diverting the ships, you would have a window of opportunity. But diverting 2 ships, I could accept, but diverting 4 whole ships,
It's like hanging out a neon sign.
yeah, we're doing something we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't really get what's going on there. The other big thing that I've looked this up on a multiple of Star Trek episode sites and everything, and this all pops up on every one of them.
Yeah.
The ship's transporters are the ship's first line of defense to stop any bacteria or anything getting on board the ship. So it's the most sensitive of all of anything. So if it senses something it doesn't understand, it's meant to hold them. Yeah, it's meant to hold them in buffer or terminate the transport and send them back. But yet the Admiral walks on, transports on with an alien that's not recognizable. Now, why didn't the transporters pick it up? Should have at least, even if it didn't know what it was, it should have at least set off alarm bells.
Fair point. Unless that case is somehow shielded. Which, being an admiral, he would know better than to take something through a transporter unshielded.
I would have. All right. I got a million of these now. All right, I can accept that. Maybe that's how he got it on. But the moment he opened the lid, the Enterprise's standard sensor sweep should have picked that up and set off the alarm bells again. Because supposedly running through the ship constantly, there is a sensor sweep, a biohazard sensor sweep that's meant to pick up that kind of stuff.
Oh, I don't know. I think you give the system too much credit.
We're talking the 24th century. If they can't pick up a little thing that's doing, dung, 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 dung. And I love the way it moved. It was just that made me laugh. I'm not kidding. I'm sitting there. I'm going, this is making me. I hate. And then this thing goes dung, 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 and under the door. It went under the door.
Which, yeah.
How does it go under the door? The door's meant to be
go under the door at all. Seriously.
It went under the door, but it went dum 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 dum. I love the way it just. I think it was one of those, the wind up things that just do this on the floor. Oh no! I was eating something at the time. Let me just tell you now, I stopped eating it because I'm putting it into me. Oh no! I couldn't eat it.
So much for my lunch.
Yeah, I couldn't eat that. I would have hated
me at all. I
would have hated to have been
mozzarella sandwich for lunch.
Yeah. I would have had to have been Robert Shecken. I can't say his so Lieutenant Commander Dexter Remick. I would have hated to have been the actor to have shoved that silicon or whatever it was into his mouth.
How do you know there wasn't something made of candy?
Because how many times they have had to have made that take, and how many times would you have had to have eaten it?
I don't know. I mean, mind you, whatever he was wrapping his mouth around probably wasn't even whole at that point. It was probably just half of one. Maybe
it is, but still, I mean, I'm sorry. I would gag trying to get that into my mouth. And just if it is silicon or whatever, I mean,
peaceful coexistence.
Yeah, I'm not certain.
That doesn't exactly have the ring of truth right now.
Yeah, but he changed too.
Mm.
His whole attitude became, I don't know, not aggressive. I wouldn't say aggressive. It became
Domineering.
no,
Well, it wasn't friendly, that's for sure.
no,
I
it
certainly
wasn't.
wasn't about to buy a car off him.
It became a very severe case of condensation. Uh, he probably would have had a lot of
Wipe down the
condensation.
windows, please.
Probably would have had a lot of condensation in his mouth after putting the multiples of them in, but condescending, it became really badly condescending. I cannot remove this either because if I pull this out, if I edit this out, it won't make any sense. So I'm Captain Constance. Oh, now I can't even say it. I can't even say it now.
Oh, do you want a shovel for that? You're just digging a bigger hole.
Yeah, I'll just go out and get my shovel, my big shovel. He became that.
Condensation is here to save the day.
I don't know where to go
Yes,
with that.
he boards ships and makes them rust.
Hang on, I've got a water pistol, so I'll just create a bit of condensation. I don't know what they were trying to do with that attitude. I don't know where they were going with that.
Well, mind you, Star Trek has never done that before. The whole thing with it was groundbreaking, really. the whole idea of having the creature going into his mouth, and it was a whole touch of horror going into his mouth and having his throat bulge.
Yeah,
like that. And
what was going on with that?
About to have his meat sack of your head explode.
What was going on with the neck?
A whole new graphic thing.
I don't understand.
He's essentially a huge meat sack at this point. The creatures are occupying what used to be a human being's body.
Now, I've got to admit, I didn't see. This will lead on to something. This leads on to the other situation that I've got notes. I've got a whole heap of notes here. But if you actually look under conspiracy for Star Trek, most people consider that to be the only time Star Trek did a horror episode. It's classified as a horror episode. If you actually look under horror genre, that episode comes up under a lot of it. So it's been already classified as a horror. A very bad horror, but nevertheless a horror.
Aside from Catspaw, which is a horror for different reasons.
Yeah. My other concern is, how did that bigger creature get into Remick?
I don't know. Perhaps it was smaller at one point and simply matured within him.
But it's supposed to be the mother. They're actually saying it was the mother. Now, mother.
Maybe that's why Remick, sometime before, was a lot more human and it was maturing within him.
Yeah, I don't know. They kind of. They didn't really. I mean, you kind of didn't understand. When I saw the creature coming out of the chest, I automatically thought, "Oh, we're doing an alien scene." Okay, but moving on from that, when it came out, and then
mind you, if it had broken into song and started singing, "Hello, my baby, hello, my baby, hello, my ragtime gal,"
we're doing Spaceballs. I do love that. I do love that movie. I'm not kidding. And the fact that they got the original guy who did the alien, and they got him. I thought that was really good. But when they go back and you see the little creatures around his body, you kind of have to start filling in the gaps a little bit. But there was a lot of gaps in that episode. A lot of gaps that were never. I'm not certain they ever wanted to fill them, to be truthfully honest.
Well, mind you, I think they missed an opportunity there. I mean, it was a total MacGuffin, though, having the all of the smaller creatures being controlled by the mother creature is a cheat in my book.
Yeah, it is.
Once the mother creature dies, all of the junior creatures die off with it, and that's just a cheat, because then of course you take out the mother creature and everybody's saved. I'm thinking that's just lazy.
It's the reset button. It's the reset button again.
Yeah, it's three. And when we've talked about that before. If there's one thing that royally cheeses me off, it's the reset button. Seriously, we need to get past the reset button.
Look, I think you're right with the factor that having the mother die and all the others die with it didn't make any sense. It was a cop-out. It was a quick, easy. They had 10 minutes to end it, and this is how they were going to end it in 10 minutes. So the argument then comes down to, if there was other Starfleet personnel that were infected that were not in close proximity, were they also, were the creatures died as well? Or do they go on by themselves? Or who's controlling them? I mean, this is all the questions that they've left open.
Yeah.
And
and surely she wouldn't have been the only queen, for instance.
Well, they never answered how she got there.
Yeah. And surely, I mean, you remember the map that Data showed, of a path that they took there to get there.
Yeah.
And and it would appear that they were planning on taking over that region of the Federation. Surely that queen can't control all of those babies in that entire corridor of space.
No.
Then you've got to have multiple queens along that corridor. And so you could have opened up the door to a whole series of stories where you've got to go and clean up that entire corridor.
Yeah, I don't think they'd ever do that, because that reeks of the old kind of 80s television shows like Renegade and I forget the one where you've got to go, and they did a lot of science fiction where you had to clean up pockets of it, and they never went well because it was never ending. There was damn it, I've just literally forgotten them all. I've literally forgotten them all. There was a whole heap of 80s and early 90s science fiction TV series where they brought that kind of concept out, where a special elite force had to go and clean all the aliens that had spread out through and each week you would see them go after a different alien, and it becomes boring after a while. It becomes really boring.
Well, it's a repetitive idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a very repetitive idea. But going with your idea on that, they could have at least got 2 other episodes out of that where they did clear it up and answer a few more questions. Plus, again, it goes back to this whole corridor is filled with replaced Starfleet. What happened to them?
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, I mean, Data's already confirmed that you've got a whole bunch of people along that corridor who have been replaced. What happened to them?
Yeah.
They never addressed that.
No.
You've taken care of the people on Earth, but surely the people along that corridor, they can't all be controlled by the Queen.
Because, and this comes down to the underlying problem. If they are controlled by the Queen, right, and the Queen can control out that kind of distance and that number of her young, then why then do they need to send a subspace transmission, like a radio signal, to potentially, which I'm going out on a limb here, to their species? If she can actually control over huge distances, why do they need to send a radio signal? This is where I think what you were saying also before, where they didn't research that first episode or the episode that kind of it led on from. Yeah,
coming of age.
yeah, they didn't research all their different components of what they
Yep.
were saying, because they were saying one thing but then contradicting themselves about 10 minutes later
Yes.
in the episode.
Yeah.
And that, for me, again, was another stumbling block for me to actually start to enjoy this. That they were constantly contradicting themselves as they were going along.
I know they should have figured out the story arc, written the stories all at once, and
How far between that one and the conspiracy was it?
They're about 5 episodes apart.
Yeah, see, that's I think where part of the problem arisen. I think if they'd done one episode in between and then gone to conspiracies, it would have been fresher in everybody's memory. I think leaving it for 5 with and that conspiracy being the 6th episode, I think that's where their problems originated from.
Yes.
I seriously believe that's the problem, because 5 episodes, that's about nearly 3.5 hours worth of filming gone. That's potentially 2 weeks, nearly 10 weeks of filming gone.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember what you did back then.
No.
And I think that's where their whole hurdle started, was the factor that there was such a massive gap between the episodes. And I think that caused the conspiracy. Look, I still can't see any way this episode could have been done better, but it may have been bearable for me if they had followed at least some logic and some continuity in the episode.
Yeah. I don't know. As I said, I think it was a great idea that suffered in the execution.
Yeah, I think it was executed. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it was executed completely. Well, you just got me then, didn't you?
Executed. That's
it was executed by the guillotine. I mean,
oh dear.
It was
the pacing was a bit slow. I mean,
I think the pacing was jilted.
Yeah, there was far too much build up towards the end. The aliens liking their drama a little bit too much, and oh yes, we're look how clever we are, and we've got you now. Whereas
I was just waiting for the dramatic evil music to come at the end,
Mind you, I thought it was cleverly played in that we didn't know Riker's condition. We didn't know whether Riker had been infected by the alien.
And, okay, if you take it for watching it the first time, yeah, we didn't know Riker hadn't been infected.
Exactly.
Although, and I know it's hard for us because I've watched it twice. If you actually look at it, when you looked at what's sake, I've got crap with names today. If you Admiral Quinn, you saw the thing doing this, moving around. When you look at Riker's, it's completely stationary.
Yes. Yeah, that was a bit of a giveaway.
But they gave you just a little bit of information if you were quick enough to figure it out.
Yes.
And they didn't give you a long look at it. So they gave you just enough to think, Riker hadn't been infected yet, if you were quick. Yeah. So I didn't mind that. That was actually well done. But then again, you kind of knew Riker wouldn't have got infected.
There were a couple of boo-boos along the way. I mean, for instance, Worf and Geordi should have realized that coming into the Admiral's room, they shouldn't have taken the Admiral's word for it straight away that the Riker had simply tripped and fallen, when it was Riker who had called the emergency.
Yeah.
That's
so how did he call the emergency if he's fallen over?
It's like, oh yeah, he tripped and fell. It's like, no, he didn't. He called an emergency and said that there was a problem in here, and you're just taking the Admiral's word that there's not a problem, and he just tripped and fell. No.
Did you also
And mind you,
notice that
yeah,
they
sorry.
no that did you also notice that Riker called for security, right?
Yeah.
So only Worf turned up. What about a whole security team? We got an admiral. You've got an admiral on board. There's a situation going on with an admiral, and only one security officer turns up.
Yeah, I know that was a bit underwhelming. Mind you, did you notice the other non sequitur at the very start of the episode? And that was when Riker asked for an increase in warp speed,
Yeah,
and he says, "Yeah, full impulse."
yeah,
I'm thinking, "Gee, that's going to help."
yeah. There was also
Um,
supposedly a big gaffe in Remic's hips. You see him at the beginning and he's a full commander. Then when you see him later on, he's only a lieutenant commander.
Yeah, I noticed his pips changed.
So in less than 45 minutes, he got demoted. I mean, that guy must have done something bad.
Yeah, well, he was really irritating.
Did you actually? I'm going to go there because did you actually like? I'm not going to say the actor because the actor, even though I think he was given a very bad character, I think the actor did the best he could do with what he had. Did you like the character of Remick? Because I wanted to really put him out of the airlock.
Well, as I said earlier, when I first saw Remick, it was like, did somebody just point me to the nearest airlock? I mean, seriously, it's like, just just relabel the nearest airlock turbo lift, and just point him towards it. Seriously, he was a truly annoying person. He was worse than annoying in the first episode when he came on board, and he was part of JAG, and he was given an express order by the admiral that there is something wrong with the Enterprise, and I want you to find out what it was. Now, as a JAG officer from the given an order by the admiral, that's not clear enough. And even a go-getting officer in a JAG needs a heck of a lot more than that just to go on a fishing expedition on the flagship of the Federation. It's like, there's something wrong, go find something.
Yeah, you need guidelines. You need
you need something better than to just go on a fishing expedition and find some dirt.
Something like that. You need terms of reference. A JAG can only operate with terms of reference, and if you're not giving them, then whatever he finds or whatever he does is not legal, and it could be thrown out of court very quickly.
Exactly, and all he did was get on board, annoy the hell out of everybody, and then when he finishes up, he basically tells the admiral there's nothing wrong with what's going on in this ship, and then he has the cheek to look at Captain Picard and tell him there is nothing wrong with what's going on in the ship. All I find here is a great sense of loyalty to the captain and a great sense of family. And then he looks at the captain and says, "My time at JAG is nearly up. When I'm done there, this is where I'd like to serve." And Picard sort of looks at him with a sort of, "Are you serious?" See that you've alienated me, you've alienated my entire crew, and you're trying to ingratiate yourself to me right now.
But then I can sort of remember this episode, and it's going to be hard for me, but I'll do it anyway. It sounds like that's another one of those episodes which really didn't make a lot of sense again. It was just there.
Well, that was just it. I mean, in Coming of Age, the Admiral was trying. It was a dumb episode in that the Admiral was simply. I think it was the lead up to this one because the Admiral was trying to make sure that Picard was still who he was. He was still trying to make sure he was the good guy and that he was a good man, because at that point he was already opening up the line of discussion that there's something wrong in the Federation, and that he said, "I want to I want to promote you to Admiral, and I want you to take over Starfleet Academy.
See,
Does that ring a bell?
yeah,
And of course, Picard knocked it back.
that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if Quinn's feeling that there is a concern in Starfleet, then where does Walker's concern come from?
Well, Walker had, of course, seen all sorts of dodgy stuff going on, and of course the deaths of people that he trusted and knew and respected.
But wouldn't have Walker and Quinn had been talking to one another at this point? Don't you think?
Not necessarily. Just because Picard knows Quinn doesn't necessarily translate that Walker does.
But wouldn't you, if you're in a situation like that, where you believe that there was an imminent threat, either internally or externally, coming towards the Federation and Starfleet, wouldn't you then do your best to find allies? Because if you don't, you're standing alone doing bugger all and you're in trouble. Even if you are an admiral, there's only so much one admiral can do, and to keep an eye on everything without setting off red flags.
In the first episode, I think that's what he was doing in Coming of Age. He was trying to find allies. He was trying, and to bring them close. Remember, he was trying to bring Picard to Earth.
Yeah.
To bring him close to Starfleet Academy. And of course, as Commandant of Starfleet Academy, he can help definitely mold the next generation of Starfleet cadets that are going out there to make sure that they're good people.
Yeah, all right. And I suppose no one was alluding at this point to what the threat was.
Exactly. Even at that point, I don't think the Admiral truly knew what the threat was. And by the time we came around to Conspiracy, the Admiral himself had succumbed to it.
I think in Conspiracy, that if we're going to put the two of the episodes together, I think in Conspiracy they came up, they described, not in a lot of detail, but they described the threat, I think, too quickly. I think it was all wrapped up, revealed and resolved in like the last 20 minutes of the episode.
Well, as I said, they had a great idea, but they rushed it. You've got this great conspiracy. You've even got what I thought was a great alien, but they rushed they rushed the execution.
Something that's been taken over the last 6 to 9 months to get into position, and then they Picard and Riker resolve it in less than half a day. That's basically
what they could have done was having the whole conspiracy thing running as a subplot over several episodes, and then have conspiracy coming together as as the final episode, a full episode like this one, only after you've had it running as a subplot over several episodes to build up.
I think that was never going to happen because TNG was never, they didn't like series run plots. It wasn't even considered in Next Gen. It wasn't considered until I got to DS9.
Well, mind you, they'd already done it. They'd already had it as a subplot. They'd already begun the subplot in Coming of Age. I would, and I know this is going to sound really bad, but I would almost be at the point where I would say that Coming of Age may have been a standalone and they had no intentions of doing Conspiracy at the time. Look, I would agree with you that it is very well known that Gene was not a big fan of long story arcs.
No.
For instance, it's well known that Voyager's Year of Hell was put forward as a year of hell. That it would have been an entire season instead of 2 episodes. That would have been really interesting. But of course, we got 2 episodes instead. And mind you, they were 2 really awesome episodes. But yeah. But I think, this would have been served a lot better, as I said, if it had been a subplot over several episodes, culminating in one big episode.
I think you might be right. I think stretching it, sorry, bad wording, allowing it to evolve over multiple episodes, they could have delved a lot deeper into all of the aspects that they alluded in Conspiracy. Problem is, you can only delve into so much in a 45-minute episode, and they just physically didn't have the time. Again, I think they should have tried to push on that one to get it over maybe another 2 episodes. Even if they'd spanned it over, like have that kind of thing scattered through the first season, and as they could have had the culmination, the conspiracy of the very last episode.
Yeah, I mean, you take care of it. Yeah, you discover the conspiracy, say at some outpost at Whoop Whoop. Yeah, take for instance, you've got your cone that Data discovers, and you start off by discovering it at the outer edges of the cone, and you start working inwards. Okay.
Yep. You don't have to chase anybody. You're just gathering intel. That's all you're doing. You're not chasing anybody. By gathering intel, you're changing the way these kind of chase series work. You're not trying to chase them down. You're just gathering intel. This is an more interesting way, because you have to do it stealthily and not be caught. That's the whole. So you're not going in with force. You've got to be very subtle, and I think that would have been a very good way of doing it.
Yeah,
I think the most stupid point in the episode was the destruction of the USS Horatio. I think that was the dumbest. Up until that point, Picard really didn't believe that there was a problem.
Well, that was just it. I mean, that was the big turning point for him. That was the nail in the coffin that made him turn around and take it seriously and go back to Earth.
I know. So these creatures, they're making out that they're massively intelligent on the same level as we are. They like complexity, and then they do the stupidest thing and blow up the Horatio, and then basically say to Picard, well, damn it, there is something going on. Why would you do that?
I think the entire idea was to bring the Enterprise to Earth.
I know.
The Horatio, it was to bring the Enterprise to Earth. They wanted the Enterprise a heck of a lot more than they wanted the Ambassador class Horatio. I mean, Twyla Scott was at that meeting. She was there to make sure that the Enterprise was going to come to Earth. And
that makes me wonder how she got past Walker's tests. If they said it specifically clear that the one flaw they've got is they don't have memories. So how did she get past that?
Because she's such a young captain. That's probably the only reason she got the captaincy. She got the captaincy because she's one of them. And she was given a ship that she wasn't attached to, so she doesn't have a problem with memory.
I don't think that Walker would have been that. Walker wouldn't have been that foolish. I honestly don't think he would have been that foolish. He wouldn't have been taken in like that. He was being so cautious with his best friend, a person he would consider to be a brother, and he wasn't trusting Picard, and he trusts a person that he doesn't really know. I just find that a little bit too far-fetched to believe.
I don't know. Maybe she was the one that came to him, not the other way around.
Yeah. Again, I think if we'd had a longer episode, like multiple episodes, we could have delved into that a lot more and figured out how that happened. Because that's again another thing that really upset me.
It's much more fun when you delve into them more. And you make them, you bring in a lot more intrigue. And
well, they were just running that episode as a normal Star Trek one, but it failed because you can't run that kind of episode like that. It doesn't work.
And conspiracies are a lot more fun when you got somebody like Garrick in them.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the master of intrigue.
Yeah. And I don't think, truthfully, I don't believe that Next Gen had anybody or character or an actor who could do that. And that's where that episode was let down.
They're all true, especially the lies.
Yeah, I think that's where Conspiracy was let down. They didn't have anybody who could make you believe or make you so confused you didn't know where this person was, which is exactly what Garrick did. You just never knew where he was falling.
Yeah.
One minute you'd be cheering for him, and the next minute you want to shove him out the airlock, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the person they needed
was,
for this.
He was so amoral. You didn't know, you couldn't trust him. You
No,
know, he'd offer you a cup of tea, and you just couldn't be certain what was in it.
No, or what was on the cup, or anything about it.
Yeah.
But you, at the very core, you wanted to trust him, but you knew you couldn't. But you couldn't help but trust him. That's the character they were missing in Conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I think if they'd had a Garrick or similar, I think Conspiracy would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Or at least watchable.
It was an underdeveloped story, but it had so much potential.
Yeah.
Mind you, we know, and everybody agrees that season 1 was, the first season. They had a lot of developing the entire series still needed a lot of developing. Season 2 needed a lot of work. But season 1, needed a lot of developing still. It was still finding its way.
Well, the characters were still finding their way.
Conspiracy is still one of the, in my book, one of the better episodes.
I'm going to say this because you've kind of shifted my ground a little bit on this. I think Conspiracy would have been better, truthfully, in either the 4th or the 5th season. For me, when the characters finally got who they really were, and the plots got in there, and they understood the relationship of everything, and you understood where Enterprise fitted into the kind of story of Star Trek, I think it would have been better in the 4th or 5th season. You would have got a lot better episode. And we're basically about to go over. We've
no surprise there.
No. So we've failed dismally. We've failed dismally on our last record. So I think that for me, if it had been in the 4th or 5th season, I think you would have ended up. The writers were beginning to get a leg on of what they were doing. They understood their characters, they understood the plots. I think
we would have had better special effects as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had bling, 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 bling. I think.
No, I mean, we would have had a lot more going on outside the ship as well.
True. But I also think what they were trying to do in Conspiracy was too complicated for season 1.
Yes.
I personally, from listening to you now, I would be willing to change my opinion if I think later on in the series, if Conspiracy had popped up later, I think it would have been able to have done it better, and they would have. By this time, we had now had multiple episodes with Data and Nung Surian. We'd had multiples and Law. So it wasn't first 2 seasons they didn't do that, but later on they started to do that. So I think what we're both saying is if Conspiracy could have got at least probably 4 episodes scattered, I would have accepted being scattered.
Yeah.
I think it would have done a lot better.
Worf had a highly developed story arc. And Conspiracy, you could have done a lot with it if they'd taken the time to either do it as a subplot or to develop over a longer period of time. And as I said, they could have worked backwards on this cone of influence and brought it to a huge head. It would have been it could have been something glorious if they'd handled it properly.
Yeah, I just think I don't think they fully understood what they were doing with Conspiracy, and I don't think they knew how to actually take it to its fullest. I don't think they were ready for Conspiracy. It was too ambitious for them, I think, in season 1.
Yes.
I think that's the underlying.
It was a great idea. It was a
great idea, but I think it was too ambitious for them at this point.
And if they were to do a sequel, there was a great opportunity to do something truly spectacular.
Okay. We'll do the normal question. So, number
Yeah, no
one,
worries.
the overall episode. What did you think of the overall episode? Say you give it between a 1 and a 5 for you.
3.5.
Ooh, you liked it, but you only gave it a 3.5.
Well, mind you, the best of both worlds gets a 5.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. What about kind of this is a conjunction, but what about the acting, the actual characters? Were they believable, or were they kind of they just didn't have the depth that was needed for that kind of episode again?
Well, yeah, that's just it. Some of the actors, the acting, even Walker Keel, at times, I wouldn't have given them better than 2.5. Twyla Scott was just at times unbelievable.
It was like for me, it
I
was
wouldn't have done better than 2.5.
for me. It was kind of robotic, kind of in some some points.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, Worf was probably the best actor of the lot of them. So yeah,
wasn't one of Picard's better ones either, I think. But
no.
You touched on this before. You would like to see a sequel. You would have liked to have seen a sequel.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to see a sequel. And the more we talk about it, the more I'd love to see a sequel. I think the ground is right for a sequel for this, and you could do something really cool with it in the right hands.
Well, there you go. You're going to have to write a story on it now. You're going to have to write what. See, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, mate. I'm sorry. You've just said you'd like to see a sequel. So,
do you have any idea how big the pile is for sequels? Yeah, I've got a pile of things I'd like to write sequels for.
I could get. Okay, just one small. If you had the opportunity and you were in the production meeting, would there be one thing you would have changed?
Oh, one thing I would have changed. All right. Oh, this is a tough question. Tough question. Oh man, can I come back to that one?
Okay. For me, the overall episode, I was going to give it a negative number, but you kind of talked me around it a little bit. I'm not kidding. I was in the negatives, but you have talked me right. I'll give it a 1 only because you have talked me a little bit away from the I hate it. I still hate it, but I'm not going to be emphatic about it anymore. I'll give it a 1, and that's about as good as I can get for it. Did the actors work? No, I don't think the actors actually. I don't think the characters were believable at any point through this episode. In most cases, it was just like they were literally reading lines off a sheet. They didn't put anything into it. That was from my point of view. And you're disagreeing with me on that.
Yeah, well, admittedly, some of it was pretty wooden, yes. Yeah, some of it was pretty wooden, you're right.
No, I mean, this is my opinion. This is why this one was going to be so different, because there was 2 completely conflicting concepts here. Would I like to see?
Wayne, can I please ask? Can you pause it for a sec? You were saying.
Would I like a sequel? Yeah, but it'd have to be under some very strict guidelines, I think, to get anything out of this. To be truthfully honest,
that's true. I mean, it's very hard to salvage the Titanic, in your opinion.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want a single episode sequel. That's
yeah.
That would be my
first. You have to do something pretty cool with it.
That would be my first. My first prerequisite for a sequel. It would have to be done a minimum over 2 episodes.
Yes.
And you'd want
preferably 3 or 4.
Well, yes, but I think, in all honesty, you might be able to stretch it to 3. But I think, truthfully, 4 might be a bit.
Yeah, all right. 4 would be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I think you might be able to stretch out for 3 because you could have other plots running through it, and then you could have the 3rd episode as the one that everything comes together. But you couldn't, if they said, "Oh, we're doing a sequel to this," or if Picard or anyone ever tries to touch this kind of conspiracy idea, and they only do it in 1 episode, then for me that would be the death nail straight off, because you can't do this in 1 episode. You physically can't.
You can't. Yeah, and we found that out, didn't we?
You've got to do, minimum would be 2. I mean, I agree with you. You'd really want 3, but you'd need to flesh this out a lot more. And I think that was its biggest downfall, that it wasn't fleshed out. There was too many things left hanging. And they just moved on to the next thing, got that hanging, and moved on to the next thing.
And hit the reset button.
Yes. But I don't think the reset button worked properly on this one. That was the big problem.
No, it didn't. Yeah, they left far too many things hanging. I mean, as we discussed, there are all those people out there who have been infected by this thing and must still be infected.
That could answer why we had so much trouble with Starfleet during the Dominion War, because they weren't human. They were these little whatever they were. We're just going to blame it on them, not on Starfleet.
Blame it on the little pink bugs.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to know how the mother got there and how the mother infected Lieutenant Commander. I would love to know where the signal was going. And in all honesty, and I know this is probably a mute question because it should be reasonably, but I really wanted to know what they were up to. What their overall plan was. Was it to conquer or just to take a wedge out of the Federation?
Yes, the thought plickens.
Because they never really... They put a lot of emphasis on this wedge that they defined, but why were they picking on that particular area? I mean... And was their intention, as you pointed out, just to carve out a little area for them to live? But obviously that wouldn't have worked, because when you saw Ramek at the end with all of them around his body, they multiply like mad. So
yes,
they're like an uglier.
In their opinion, they are a superior form of life.
Yes, they're like an ugly version of triples. Add water, multiple off. They're the things they just didn't answer them, and they didn't just leave them hanging. They ignored them. That was worse. Leaving them hanging would have been bad, I think. But just to forget about them. Oh, it's not important. Let's just ignore it. It was just this kind of backhanded slap of, we don't worry about the fans. They don't really care. We've given them a 45-minute advent. No, it wasn't an adventure. Horror. No, it wasn't a horror movie. No, it was a spot. No, really, we don't even know what the episode really was.
No, we don't. It was, it was a question mark.
And I could live with that if it was written better, I think. But it was just,
It was Stargore. According to that headline that I saw once, many, many years ago. Stargore. And, it really offended somebody, that's for sure.
The interesting thing, and obviously, if anybody's watching this and they disagree with me on this, by all means, comment. I don't think in any of the versions of Star Trek that came after that or are coming now that they've ever tried to do another episode like Conspiracy.
What? As in blowing people's heads up like that?
And they've never tried to do another horror version, as far as I can remember.
Mind you, do you remember that episode where, wasn't it The Most Toys, where a woman was burned from the inside out?
I can't remember that one. Honestly, I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, it was the most toys where this lady was shot with a weapon that burned her from the inside out, and you know, it's a pretty nasty weapon. That was pretty cruel.
But that wouldn't be classed as a horror. That's just classed as a very nasty and ugly weapon. They were trying
Yeah.
to almost create a horror movie here. And
Yeah,
they
I know
never
that would
tried
be
that
great.
again because I think they copped so much
Well,
backlash of this.
well, okay. Then there was what was that ghost story in season 7 of the Next Gen? That's not exactly a horror, but I suppose it's a ghost story. Yeah, you remember the one where yeah, Dr. Crusher was getting it on with the ghost.
Oh, yeah,
I
on the
can't believe
planet
I've
that
forgotten the
had
name of that episode.
Scottish background, Scottish ancestry, and all of that.
Yes. The one with this, yeah.
But it wasn't
Oh,
a
Scottish
ghost; it
people on
was
that one.
an entity.
Well, he looked like if it walks like a ghost and looks like a ghost and talks like a ghost.
It was an entity that had sort of come on and sort of. I know the episode, but it's been a long time since I've watched that one.
Yes.
It has been a long time, so we might have to do that one to just to. That could end badly. That one though. Putting us two onto that episode that could end badly.
Yeah, I want to be able to appear on YouTube again.
Well, I also want to, if we do an hour-long podcast, and after I've edited it all, I'll have about 2.5 minutes of footage that I can use. Because I know where you're going to end up going with this. So maybe that may not be a good episode for us to go there. No, I think we'll leave that one.
Yeah, no. That's wow.
I think we'll leave that episode. Maybe for later, if we're still doing these in a year, we might be more mature. Or we might be able to get something done. But at this moment, no, we're not. We couldn't. Yeah, you're right. I want to stay on YouTube. I don't want to be ticked off.
I know that even Gates McFadden isn't a big fan of that episode.
Gates McFadden actually has her likes and her dislikes, just as pretty much everyone. And unfortunately, most of the crew that dislike their episodes are the actual ladies, females.
Yeah.
Most of them don't like a lot of their episodes because they were portrayed very badly. And they weren't given very strong roles, and they particularly didn't like that. So there was a lot of issues going on with Gates McFadden and Troy. I can't think of a
I
real
feel
name.
sorry for Marina Sirtis. The 2
Thank
times
you.
she flies the Enterprise, she crashes it.
Yeah, I know. But she crashed it nicely.
She crashes it into a planet, and she crashes it into ship.
But she crashed. Look, the old adage: if you can walk away from any crash, it's a good landing. So you know.
True. Yeah, my old man always said that. A crash is just a controlled. Sorry, a landing is just a controlled crash.
It is.
So,
it is. My dad, I think, may not have said it like that. He said it in another format, which I can't repeat. But yeah, it's very similar to that. Landings are only controlled crashes. So technically, yeah. And for anyone who out there is a pilot, we are not trying to be derogative or anything towards your abilities to land an aircraft. We're just trying to make a funny video.
My dad is a pilot, so yes.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he is a pilot.
Well, I'm not trying to pick on Sean's dad, so either. All right, I think we've hammered this episode enough, and I think we've probably ticked more people.
That's no conspiracy.
Yeah, I think we've ticked a lot. Probably going to have ticked a lot of people off on this.
What the people? Just about everybody who hates it, who would disagree with me.
Maybe we didn't go hard enough. That's what they're probably going to say.
Exactly.
Maybe we didn't attack it enough.
No. I think there are redeeming qualities and everything, except for maybe Cat's paw. But
Yeah, see,
But
this
then
is
again,
where,
if I can find redeeming qualities in The Way to Eden, then there are redeeming qualities in just about everything.
but if, for those of you who may not have, we've done one of these on Cat's Paw, and Sean hates it with a vengeance as much as I hate this, but I didn't actually mind Cat's Paw. Now I think he's just seeking revenge and saying he loves it. I don't know where this is going to go, but it's probably bad. All right, guys.
I
Thank
might
you.
have to write a sequel now to this episode and put it on Trekkie fan fiction just to
Yeah,
just
go
to show
over.
that you can do something with this.
I'll put Trekkie fan fiction's link in the bottom. By all means, go over and have a read of it, because he's got some really good stories there. And keep an eye out, because I'm going to pressure him now to write a sequel to Conspiracy. And if it mucks up, it's going to be his fault, not mine. All right, guys, you have a good week and a good weekend. We will do another one of these as quickly as we can. And I hope everyone has a good and stay safe.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
See ya.